Get that straight. It is. All right. Just share this. Come on. Oh, there it is. All right. Almost done, folks. Almost done. Alright. Inna alhamdulillahi wa kafah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa wa ala ibadi alladhina irtada wa man bihudahum ihtada wa bi'athari ahli al-Madinah iqtafa wa ba'd. فسلام الله على القوم. أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا. Juan, Layth, bienvenidos a todos. People, bakhair ragale. Khushamadid. And swagatam. Right, alright, folks. Alright, God. You know what? I think I need to restructure these classes to have them, or these sessions, to have them a bit earlier. Bloody hell, this keeps tilting. Because now the hour has gone forward as well, so we must be all feeling it, really. In the UK, anyway. Right, so what's going on? Ayub, I'm good. Alright, Imran, you're doing it. Hina, alaykum assalam, Jamshed, Nicholas, alright, ¿cómo estás? People, this guy is definitely the D. People, this guy, the comment said this guy is definitely a Jewish puppet. Not even a puppet, but puppet. And his own name is the D. Ah, people. You couldn't make this stuff up if you tried, I guess, but what's going on? Right, Hassan, Wasif, alaikum assalam, all the way from Vancouver. How's your phone? My phone is no good. That's a different phone, Maj. That's a different phone. That's business, business. We cannot talk business on this, this only Mufti talk here. Right, so if you get back to my actual messages, Maj, rather than and fill me in over there with how to resolve those tech issues. Ibn Battuta says, is Farid your friend now? Khadim Rizvi says, Yahudi agent. I mean, at least I think they should pay me then, at least if I'm their agent. I mean, yeah, there should be some benefit rather than just being labelled an agent. I mean, I might as well be like a billionaire agent. What the hell? Go on then. Rather than just taking the title. Salam from Ilford via Jhelum. Ya salam. That's a bit of a lengthy route. But wa alaikum assalam. People, today will be taking a look at quite a few issues. Also the topic which I was supposed to cover last week, but I couldn't go ahead with it. Sleeps 112 is saying Mufti equals double agent. Right, anyway. Big up Jhelum, yes, salam. All right, big up Jhelum, people. Somebody says you didn't answer Ibn Battuta. Ibn Battuta. Am I Farid's friend? Are we talking about Fariduddin Ganguteli? I don't know what being a friend means, but friend. I'm not that I'm aware of. I'm not on any. He's definitely. I'll leave that comment. I'll leave that comment. Right, I'll let the show heat up a bit more first before I drop vibes like that. No, nothing. There's no communication between us. I think he's. I don't know too much about. You see, unlike a lot of my haters, I don't actually stalk these people, believe it or not. I'm not saying I've got a life. I'm just saying I'd rather be watching some TV series than trying to stalk these fools. So I genuinely don't have. I mean, if somebody mentioned something to me, I might listen. If somebody said, "Oh, do you know this has happened?" But I won't go out of my way and follow and watch for hours on end these fools. Hell no. Farid said he made a tweet about it in such a proud way. Damn, I overdid this yesterday. Had to rest it today, couldn't even go to the gym. These hand exercises and muscle exercise. These arm exercises, people, right? So so he actually made a tweet about me saying he watched 180 hours of me. I was just, wow, you know. Why do I only get the weirdos saying that about me? There's like, you know, in a parallel universe, there must be like another Mufti Abu Layth where awesome people actually watch 180 hours of him. And I'm stuck over here with weirdos, you know, people who, I mean, they by default, they ought to be on at least about 4 or 5 separate lists, like barring lists, by just looking at them, you know. So why do I get stalked by these people? Right, somebody says my right hand hurts. Nutty. Huh? Left hand. Oh, I gave it away. No, it's fine. It's fine. Right, so chai. People, what is going on? Shout out for my Chinese friend. You think I fall for that one? You naughty. New Zealand. All right. Ahlan wa sahlan. Do sons get 2 times? Sons get 2 times the inheritance of girls. I've already answered that. There's a separate clip. Mufti, Nation of Islam, please. No, thank you. I mean, I know. Are you trying to recruit me into the Nation of Islam? I wouldn't qualify. I mean, I know I'm dark, but I wouldn't qualify still. You got to be African American, I'm sure, to be into the NOI, the Honourable Elijah. And they always come suited with the bow ties and always disciplined. Wow. Now, a Pakistani just could never be disciplined like that. It's just, it'll always turn up late, or it'll always be, it just wouldn't work. The whole Nation of Islam would collapse. Right, so Will you discuss Muslims marrying non-Muslims today? Waqar, yep, hell yeah, that's what I'm going to discuss that today. I was supposed to discuss that last week. What had happened, I realized why my Facebook kept switching off. I mean, it was really weird actually, because I launched it again and then it would switch off again, and I'm thinking, this is weird, like it's not the internet connection, it's not, you know, it doesn't make any sense. I'm sure I've paid my bills. I mean, I'm sure my neighbor has paid his bills, whose Wi-Fi I'm using. Right, but then I realized it's my daughter. What she'd done was she'd been just downloading this sounds like one of those terrible alibis, isn't it? Like, no, I can explain. It's my child's been downloading all these. No, she's been downloading all these apps and then using the video camera and just recording hours of useless footage. So what's happened is it just clogged out the entire memory. So I had to delete so many things to free up the memory. That's why. But yeah, no, Your Honor, it was my daughter had been downloading all that. Yeah, so Mufti Saab, can you discuss whipping, lashing? Whipping and lashing. Yeah. What is this one, huh? Right, so very disturbing. See the Taliban, oh, whipping women, huh? What? Akram? What websites have you been watching? You naughty. Watching the Taliban whipping ladies. What are you on about? Yaar, toba. Yaar, जाएं तो कहाँ जाएं? आदमी जिए तो जिए कैसे? How can we? ये पापी संसार doesn't let us be. Us simple folks, people, simple folks. What's your view on mut'ah? My view. Is it true that they believe that Mr. W.D. Fard was God in person? I take it you're talking about the Nation of Islam. I've got no idea what they believe. Right, so what's going on, folks? What is going on? What questions are we looking at? Can we discuss the issue of Salafi extremism rising in the world? Can we, every week I say I'm going to put some kind of like a scarf here. So I can just put... and I have to every week resort to this kind of tissue. Astaghfirullah, akhi. Ya akhi. Inna lillahi wa... Oh, I gotta... You know what? Somebody made a post and I thought I want to read this out during my live. They tagged me into it. Wait there. Un momento. Right, let me just bring it up, people. Bring it up. Wait there. Right, okay. So somebody, Arthur Morgan. Right, it was on my... It tagged me in it, so it's on my wall as well. He said, had such a busy day today being a proper mujahid. Marde mujahid. First, I saw this brother walking through the alcohol section in Morrison's. We have to judge by the apparent, so I've gone and told his wife that he's drinking alcohol. Then I saw this other brother with his trousers below his ankle. Yeah, sorry, I need to get into character. This is my character. Right, so... Then I saw this other brother with his trousers below his ankles. So I went and punctured his tires. This is the adhab min Allah ta'ala min fawqi sab'i samawat. This is the adhab, people, that is coming down. that your tires get punctured. Time for Salah came. So I went home and prayed because none of the Maajid in my area is upon the haqq. None of them. They're all mubtadi'een. Right. Saw this sister. Saw this sister with this white guy. I'm assuming he only converted to marry her. So I went and shouted in her face that she should divorce him. Then I went for chicken and chips with the brothers. We chatted about other people's personal lives to make ourselves feel better about our own. Boasted about how other people are deviants and we are on the haqq. Then we made a group dua against Mufti Abu Layth. Because he's a proper fitna of the age. And now I'm knackered. I think I could actually unite the Muslims, but against me. This is called having like mixed emotions, where you're like, should I do this? But yeah, right. So Shamsi versus Ali Dawa saga. What's the Shamsi? I gotta catch up with that one. What are we speaking about? It's perhaps one I already know, but it's... So what else is going on, people? Yes, we will be taking a little later on a look at the marrying, tying the knot between Muslims and non-Muslims. Toba. Oh, astaghfirullah. I gotta get the religion right, people. Astaghfirullah. Right, so let's start with right, what is going on? Brexit. Somebody has said Brexit. Brexit is a proper mess, people. No idea. Somebody's asked, what are my views on Douglas Murray? I don't like Douglas Murray at all. I think he's so... you can sense the kind of snobbery. Oh, I gotta read. You know what? Remind me, I gotta read. In fact, I'll do it now, actually. There's this back and forth on Twitter between Maajid Nawaz and... One moment. Un momento. Let me just see. Here it is, people. This was hilarious. So there's this... Gotta be careful showing my phone, actually. A notification could come up. I'm joking. Of course. I've switched off notifications. Right, so this guy, Juan Cole, he had responded to Sam Harris on Twitter, who was making some kind of remark, I think about Mehdi Hassan or somebody. But he was saying about, Sam Harris was just doing his, I think he was attacking Mehdi Hassan. And what happened was this Professor Juan Cole, or I'm saying Juan, sorry. Lo siento. Mi español. That's my Spanish. Juan, spelt in English, not Juan, but Juan Cole. That's how you'd say it in Spanish anyway. So he said, you don't have the faintest idea what Muslim belief is. You are apparently incapable of reading contextually. This was his response to Sam Harris. To which Sam Harris said, really, Professor? Well then, please alert my friends. They deserve to know this about me. And he tags in with the handle Maajid Nawaz, Ali Amjad Rizvi, and a few others, Ayan Hirsi and stuff like that. So Maajid, as a savior, jumps in and he says, Hi, Prof. Please don't Islam Spain. In air quote people, Islam Spain. Islam-splain. Sorry, Islam-splain. Thanks. And then he puts that. Right, so Juan Cole said, dude, I have a PhD in Islamic studies. I think that was the point. That I was meant to Islam-splain. I was meant to explain. Maajid said, you really want to go there with me, bro? Look me up. Look me up, any. Look me up. So Juan Cole responded, I was studying the Quran in Cairo before you were born, son. Oh! That was a killer. Whoa, he killed him. That was over. People, down for the count. Down for the count. Right, so what else is going on? Been reading it before he was born. Yep. Right, they were created around. I'm missing all these comments. We have new viewers. All right, well, so they should be. People, those of you tuning in, click like, click share, people. Share the love and the fitan and fasad. It needs to be done, needs to be done. Somebody said, Maajid Nawaz, is Maajid Nawaz your friend or Juan Cole? After seeing those comebacks from Juan Cole, it's definitely I'm team, hashtag team Juan Cole, people, team Juan Cole. Right, so, alright, somebody said, just got my top fan badge. You're doing it now. Facebook gives top fan badges, people. So those of you wearing them, mwah, mwah, Jio, khush raho, abad raho, meri jaan. That's what I'll say. Right, so let's take some questions. Let's answer some questions. Right, so, sorry, before somebody had asked me about Brexit, I think the whole thing is a mess. I think everybody's just fed up. And Theresa May is just an idiot. All they have to do is just get whatever deal they've got and just stipulate, just add the final layer, say that this is the deal, but it must be ratified by the public. So the public must get to vote this final deal in, that this will remain. Fine. There you go. Should immediately break the deadlock. Should get through. Should have a proposal. And we'd have a solution. Right. So what's going on? Right, people. What questions can we look at? Right, those of you that, let's share some international news whilst some questions. So Brunei is saying, right, for all, for the LGBTQI community out there, this little announcement that Brunei has said that if they catch you, you're gonna get stoned. But the worst part of it, it's not the kind of stone that you're probably thinking. Like, they're not gonna buzz you out. Like, alright, I'm gay and I'm buzzing. No, my friend. This one carry rock and he push rock. Okay. What on earth is Brunei on about, for God's sake? They want to stone people. They want to stone, like, throw stones at people. These guys, are they, oh my God. I mean, do they live in 2019? Is this, like, does Brunei even count? Is Brunei even, nobody, you know, Brunei is trying to, like, you know what it is? It's like, you know, you've got this kid in the corner going, hey, me. It's like the Muslim world has this whole thing, there's always this kind of ego challenge going on. Who really represents Muslims? You'll get some part, Saudi will always be like, it is, yeah, and there'll be the Gulf states, then there'll be the Middle East, then there'll be like Egypt with its kind of Cairo and Al-Azhar kind of we represent, and then you'll get, I suppose you've got Morocco with its kind of traditional, we represent traditional Sufism. Then you'll have like Pakistan saying, you know, the Chaudhries, we traditional Pakistan, you know, Pakistan ka matlab kya? La ilaha illallah. So you'll have like Pakistan, then you'll have Afghanistan saying we are the Taliban, the land, everybody. Nobody even know. Brunei isn't even, it isn't even invited to that mess of a meeting. Nobody even knows where Brunei is on a map. It's like, Brunei, what the hell is that? And from all of these countries, Brunei gets up and says, okay, we'll stone gay people to death. It's like, what? Everybody's like, what? And they're like, yeah, we'll just stone them all to death. God, I think the Sultan of Brunei must have been buzzing. He must have been thinking, oh, like, stone them, like, we'll just drug them out. Because, for God's sake, will somebody wake him up, like, oh! Just swing him around. For God's sake, this is 2019. You're not in 1352. Stoning people to death, making a mockery out of Islam, and then you'll just disappear because when you think of Islam, nobody thinks of Brunei. Nobody thinks of Brunei anyway. Nobody's heard of Brunei. It's like, so the rest of the Muslim countries just have to take the heat. Oh, I realised the comments had slightly frozen. There they are, they're back. Let's stone people. What a stupid kind of joke. I mean, if it was a joke, it'd just be like a dumb joke. It'd be one of those jokes that everybody just like. But the worst part is this guy's for real. It's like me, I stoned them. It's like, and they turn up with pebbles. They're like, they all camp as well, and they're throwing at the gay guys, and the gay guys are like, ooh, ooh, ow. Oh God. No, on a serious note though, this is embarrassing. This is really embarrassing. I mean, come on people, even in the past, look at the Maliki great ulama of the past. 600 years ago, they were speaking, saying, Abul Qasim al-Burzuli, people whose name sounds like as though he's from Brazil, but he's not. Al-Burzuli and his fatwa are over there. You can't actually see them, but there's a volume of the whole set of them in about 7 volumes. He was the Shaykh al-Islam of his day and age, a legend of a scholar. In his day and age, he had taught how stoning was abrogated through trajectory hermeneutics, people. That the day and age had changed, and therefore the hudud had changed. And that is the school of Medina, that is Maliki fiqh. He issued that ruling, he taught it, his students after him, the generations after him, and this was argued for. So my point is, and then you had in the east, he was in northwest Africa, modern day Morocco, around that region, and he travelled a bit through northwest Africa as well. So, and then you had in the east, you had people like Suleiman al-Qanuni, the Ottoman Caliph, and the Sultan, not the Sultan of Brunei, but that Sultan, and he back then had changed the legislation of things like this. So Muslims back then were ahead of the game. This is before colonial kind of influences and things like this. And today they're just going backwards in full throttle, full speed. They're going in reverse. Anyway, right, so somebody said my dad's name is Sultan. Gio. Right, so So my point is that, look, these things, it's silly having these kind of rulings. And you have to remember that the stoning thing is not in the Quran. It was abrogated, but the point is that it was part of the Jewish Bible that the Prophet condoned for them and allowed until the verses in the Quran came at the time saying what to do with people who'd committed adultery. And then with time, these things are hinged on the kind of collective ethics of the age. As they change, the rulings change. So that's why Abul Qasim al-Burzuli in his time said they changed. Now, even in the Prophet's time, you can see hints of that. So it's hinting. So you have a case where a person comes to the Prophet, and in fact the hadith is in Bukhari, but it's an abridged version, and there's Ibn Hajar in Fathul Bari brings the lengthier, slightly lengthier version, where the person comes to the Prophet and he says that I've committed, like I've had sex with some woman and so on, and he mentions that, and Ibn Hajar brings the riwayah, and the Prophet just says to him that, look, have you prayed salah? And then that is a forgiveness for it. Now my point is that these riwayat are already there, and hence the mas'ala that halit tawbah tusqitul hudud amla is a fiqhi debate. So does tawbah, just mujarradu tawbah, yusqitul hudud amla, is a classical debate that does tawbah, just simple tawbah, drop all hudud. And there's part of the Hanbali madhab held that view. It upheld that was valid, and hence Imam Ahmad brings in his Musnad the hadith when they tried to in that day punish this person who'd committed adultery, and he tried to run away, and the Prophet condemned them later on in saying that, why did you carry through with this? So the Prophet said, Halla taraktumuhu, if only that you'd left him alone. Fayatubu Allahu alayhi, that if only you'd left him, then he would have repented and Allah would have turned back to him. Now that is a hadith in the Musnad of Ahmad, and it is that is one of the opinions upheld within the Hanbali madhab, and I believe it's also the qawl qadim li Shafi'i, but it's within the Hanbali madhab that that tawbah, mujarradu tawbah, just tawbah on its own, drops all hudud. Okay, so if that be the case with just tawbah, of course that the maqasid of the sharia would dictate that the actual hudud would change with the day and age. So right, so okay, so there's that issue going on. What else, people? What else? Right, we've had a bit of an issue going on within the UK, especially within Birmingham, and I think maybe some other places, but it's become a national topic of debate, and that is to do with, somebody asked, do you listen to Sheikh Imran Hussain? I don't, no, I don't. Right, so somebody, right, so it's become a topic of national debate, teaching children about homosexuality. So what is all of this? Okay, and in schools, and this No Outsiders program. Right now, I want to say that, look, I think that this whole topic, this whole debate has been mishandled. Okay, it's been mishandled, especially by the people repping the Muslim cause. That's what I feel. That's my, perspective from how I've seen things on social media. Now you've got, yes, there's been a lot of kind of protests and stuff like that. But what I feel is Muslims need to stop. You see, that first of all, we need to clear up that there's nothing wrong in teaching, if it's simply... So I watched a national debate where the representatives said that we do not teach the children. I mean, once again, it can be debated. If people have evidence to the contrary, they can bring it forward. But in that, on that debate, the kind of Ofsted people said we do not teach them about the sexuality or sexualization. Like, we don't teach them about sexual relationships. We're just teaching them that some people have, like, some people have two mums, some people have two dads, like that. Now, I would say if that's simply the case, then that isn't a problem. That, you know, that is not a problem, people, right? Because if that is the reality, because there are people out there that have gay parents. So if that's the situation, if that's all they're teaching, if they're just creating an awareness, then that's fine. If they're teaching things about sexuality and about actual sex, not just sexuality, about sex, then I agree that it's problematic, I feel, depending on age appropriateness. So to what age? So I feel that's fine, teaching young people that, but I think some ages, they should, like, there's not, like, I would disagree strongly if you're teaching that to, like, a 5-year-old about sex. Like, I would feel that I would disagree with that, because I feel that you shouldn't be kind of imposing the specifics of sex upon young children. Now, so if that's the case, then that's how you should argue it as Muslims. Right? That's what you should be presenting. That, look, okay, that the age... If it's just teaching them that, look, some people have, as on one of the debates I watched, that one of the Ofsted kind of inspectors said, no, all we're teaching is about relationships and not about actual sex. That doesn't come into it at all. I don't know if that's the reality or not, but that's what I heard on this one national debate. If that be the case, that I think is not an issue, and we as Muslims shouldn't become insecure to that. Right? We need to relax. You're not going to become gay just by knowing other people are gay. It's like, oh no, now that I know other people are gay, I can't help it. I can't help it. Oh no! I can't help but become camp. It's like, look, relax yourselves, people. Stop becoming so insecure. Okay? Just because other people are gay, you don't just become gay by knowing that, okay? Some people have got some serious insecurities. And it makes me think that there must be a lot more... You know, these people that are seriously insecure, I feel that they're kind of closet homosexuals or borderline. This is why they're so kind of... they get worked up about these things. Now, so just to clarify, that's... So that if it's just relationships, I would say that that's not an issue, right? I've got a young daughter. I mean, one's 7, one's 4. Now, if somebody said to them, and not to kind of go OTT over the top, but if they had something where they said, look, by the way, some people out there, they have a mum and a dad, and some people just have a mum, and some people might just live with a dad, and some people might live with 2 dads, and some people might live with 2 mums. I think there's nothing wrong in that. Personally, I don't think that that's problematic. Because I think children, they just observe. And they understand that the kind of default thing is like a mum and dad. And they just get that. And they understand that some people might not be like that, but that's the kind of default setting. I don't think you need to worry too much about that. That this is almost inherently built in, that this, because if you think about it, even with creatures in general, I mean, regardless of humans, they get that sense of the kind of whatever the tribe or whatever the kind of family thing is. Now, but if they were going to teach about actual sex, then I would have a problem if it was at this kind of age. Okay, so a bit older, I wouldn't have a problem that they teach them that there are sexual relationships. But at a very young age, I think that you're robbing the children of their innocence and things like that by all this kind of sex talk. So that's the angle that I feel that Muslims and non-Muslims, because there's many non-Muslims that agree with us on that. You know, you'll be surprised. There's many people in this country that agree on that. That, you know, you shouldn't be teaching sex to very young children. So if that's the issue, that's how we should be promoting it. Not in a kind of, homosexuality should be like... And I think, you know, I watched this one interview with some guy said, look, but it's, you know, it's my religion, you can't be like this, any. You can't be like this, any. So, and the person not asking you any about your religion, any. They're just saying that that it's being taught that some relationships are like this. And then there was is it Good Morning or one of those that I saw, and this question that, look, but you know, is this a sin any in our religion any? Look, you have to understand something, people. Look, your religion is a private affair. Okay? It is not a sin for non-Muslims. Right? Non-Muslims are غير مخاطبين بالشرع. They're not بالتكاليف الشرع. They are not mukallaf. They are not liable for Islamic teachings. So you don't say to a non-Muslim, oh, you never prayed Dhuhr. That's gunnah, that's gunnah. Because they're not being asked to pray. They're not Muslim. So they're not asked to follow the Sharia. So this is for you. It's as a person. It's like, I believe that, look, this is my belief. Fine, this is what I live by. You don't believe that. So fine, you teach what you believe. And somebody, you know, there was this discussion online, and I mentioned that, look, Imam Malik taught us that we ought to defend the rights of people. When he was asked about people who were committing as a lifestyle choice, people. No, I don't just mean as a one-off, as a lifestyle choice. They would engage in actual incest relationships. Right, in Imam Malik's time, when he's in a position of power, people, power, not like just you and me sitting here today, or like some of these total keyboard warrior losers. He was in an actual position of power, where he could actually implement or have implemented what he wanted. And he was asked that, look, there are people who marry their own sisters, their own mothers, their own daughters, and they say that's their way of life. Should we get involved as part of the state, so to speak? And what did Imam Malik say? He said, La, no. He said, if that's their way of life, that's their way of life. We do not get involved. Even this is for those who were in the Muslim country, in the Islamic kind of empire, that we do not get involved. Imam Malik said that Allah taught us to be tolerant of when they even worship other gods other than him. This is their personal practice. What you know, if God was tolerant about that, why would it bother him about this? That if they do this, they do it. Obviously, we disagree with it. You know, we're not going to do it. We don't advocate it. But if that's their way of life, that's their way of life. So I think there's so much to learn from what Imam Malik was teaching. So we have this thing today that we have to not only, we don't want to do it, but other people, and by the way, nobody can disagree. So I mentioned, I've got a talk on YouTube called, it's a segment from a lengthier segment called Homosexuality and Islam, a Diverse Perspective. Now, or a diverse history, I think it's called something like that. Now, in there I speak about how there were several scholars from Islamic history who believed homosexuality was not haram. Now, amongst them, Qadi Yahya ibn Aktham, who used the Quran to justify that it wasn't haram. And there were other scholars and people, and I mentioned stories of people who were open about their homosexuality, like Abu Bakr ibn Dawood, the great muhaddith, master of hadith. I spoke about Ibn Hazm in his book of Tawq al-Hamama, where he writes about several, illustriously writes, may I add, in great detail. He writes about all kinds of things going on, but many of the escapades that were going on in his time, that people were getting up to the nutty ones, and many of them, or about half of them, homosexual. And he'll be writing about it, and he says, oh yeah, and this fulan person and this fulan person, and he seems to be very kind of just laid back about it. He doesn't seem to be like, he's just saying it. And he begins the book by saying, I'm over 40 years of age when I'm writing this book, so don't think I wrote this out of some kind of like childishness, okay, that I'm of a mature age when authoring this. And there is an English translation of it. You should read it. It's called, in Arabic, Tawq al-Hamama. I think in English they might have called it Ring of the Dove, or yeah, I think something like that, Ring of the Dove or something like that. But you get this, and you get other great scholars, and they're openly promoting they openly boast about their homosexual poetry. Now tell me, what is that about then? You know, why does Qadi Abu Bakr ibn Arabi and all these other great scholars, they'll openly, including Ibn Hazm and all these people, they'll openly boast about like homosexual poetry, and these were the people. So either these people are all deviants, and if they are, then there goes our tradition, because they're the authors. They wrote everything, right? Because look at Imam Nawawi. Imam Nawawi writes in his Fatawa book, I've got it right here, I've actually shown it. He writes how he finds his personal opinion. He says it is unquestionable. He treats it like a fact. He says fact. Right, that's a fact. He says that teenage boys are much more beautiful than any woman on earth. This is what he writes. He says this is a known fact. I've got to do that kind of Trump. And he's treating it like a fact. And this is like where you're thinking, huh? What kind of women did he have around him? Did he have women like with these big scruffy beards? Cavemen women. Yeah. Some of the Neanderthal tribes had still survived on to Imam Nawawi's time. And hence Imam Nawawi never got married. You know, it's like... And he writes this in his fatwa. Go to his fatwa book about the Amrad, the boy, the kind of boy in his mid-teens or late teens, that kind of, who hasn't fully developed a full beard and stuff like that. And he says that there's no doubt that their Jamal, their beauty, outdoes the beauty of any woman. And you think, well, okay, right, okay, this is getting weird. Imagine you're in his class, and he starts, and you're there because he has a commentary on Sahih Muslim, and you're there for the commentary, and then he starts all of this, and you're like, right, okay, Sheikh, can we focus on the hadith? But my point is, so unquestionable, if he's finding young boys attractive, or like teenage boys, I'm not saying he did something, I'm just saying, but he's openly saying, and he's not being shy about it, he's writing it openly, that yeah, they're more, in fact, they're not only beautiful, he says they're more beautiful than women, any women. And so here he's expressing this kind of bisexuality that he feels is universal. He feels that all men would be like, duh, everybody knows that. That's the kind of, he's writing it with that level of confidence. That, you know, every reader is going to be like, duh, of course. You know? But, so, now, so what is Imam Nawawi then? You know, if he's finding these guys attractive, I mean, so, is he a deviant? I mean, are we going to chuck all these people out of the faith now? So my point is that when I expressed that there was a diversity of views, I'm not saying it's you have to accept it. I'm not saying it's my view, but I'm saying these people had all these views. So, look, what's the problem? What's the problem? If some people followed some of these views, I'm just saying, why does it bother us? Why does it... It doesn't have to, like... People feel that my Islam can only be valid so long as I can impose it on the whole of the Muslim Ummah. And then my Islam is good enough for me. Why? Your Islam is for you. You know, like, look, all the madhabs disagree amongst themselves. So look, according to one madhab, like the Hanafi madhab, borderline alcohol is fine, you know, with their nabidh. According to the others, it's haram. According to some madhabs, they've said things like Qarafi and others, some other Malikiya, that look, cannabis is not haram. According to others, it is haram. According to some madhabs, apart from pig, every other animal is halal or permitted to eat. Even if it's discouraged, but it's permitted, including carnivorous animals, including predatory animals, including every fish, every amphibian, every bird, that if you wanted to eat it, you could. I'm not saying you have to, but everything is permitted. And that's the Maliki madhab. But yet, so many of those things that they would, like eating crocodile, eating kangaroo, eating... eagle, let's say vultures, eagles. I'm not saying you have to, but I'm just saying that it's not haram. Eating tigers or lions or endangered species. We need to curb it in. We need to curb it. Eating wolves, right? So I'm just saying that it's not haram. According to all the other madhabs, it's haram. That look, the madhabs have disagreed in almost everything. From the beginning, what's the big deal? We've never had uniformity. You know, we've never been just all monotonously one. That has never happened. So, where people follow different views, they do. So, look, if some gay people, right, I'm just saying, let's say some gay Muslims said, oh, right, I'm gay, I'm Muslim, and they follow that view, let's say, that there have been some ulama in the past, they've been a minority, they follow that view that they say, look, that this, you know, that this isn't haram or whatever, that's their way. Now, we can disagree with them. We can say, look, okay, according to my understanding, it would be haram, but okay, fine, that's their way. Like, what's the big deal? Why do I... No, I can't have peace until you don't have the same view as me. But you don't have the same view as me in almost 99% of fiqh. Like, we don't agree in hardly anything. I'm Maliki, for God's sake. The Maliki madhab, even amongst themselves, they disagree so much. So, this is my point, that why do we have the urge to impose on others? Islam is for me. Like, if I feel, look, I feel... oh, being a homosexual is haram, let's say. Now, that's me. Fine, if somebody said, look, I follow what Qadi Yahya ibn Aktham said, or these other people, and it wasn't haram. Majority of the Muslims did feel it was haram, but fine. Like, what's the big deal? Do you become homosexual because he said that he follows an opinion that is homosexual? What's going on? Like, what's the big deal? So just let them be. It's not like if it's not like if they didn't say that, they're going to stop being homosexual. They're still going to be you don't resolve anything. That's my point, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. And you know, the irony is somebody just on there said liar. Huizman said liar. And I sense, I don't know, but my gaydar Detects a raw nerve. Naughty, naughty. Listen, Hussein, what's his name? Wait there. Hussein? What kind of a name is that? Seaman? Oh, Huizman. Sorry. I thought that's a rather odd name to name your child. Seaman. Okay. I thought it's rather cruel. Who Seaman? This one, who Seaman? Not you Seaman? Neighbor Seaman? Which postman Seaman? Which Seaman? Where did this Seaman come from? Well, who Seaman? I just want to say, look, it's alright. You can come out of the closet. Anyway. Alright, so I just wanted to share some of that. God, honestly, I just don't get the big deal. That I think, look, just live and let live. Believe what you want for yourself. Why impose it on others? Just, if I believe, look, like, think about it. If I feel eating, let's just say, I don't know, if I felt eating crocodile was haram, which I don't, but I'm just saying, Malikis think it's permissible, and somebody said, no, according to me, eating crocodile is halal, fine, it ain't gonna make me run out and eat a crocodile. Like, I'm just saying, just chill. Chill, man, chill. And, I don't get what people are getting upset about. I'm just quoting how the ulama had, that they were probably, in nature at least, bisexual. In nature. I'm not saying that, I don't know whether they practiced gay relationships, but they probably, most of them didn't, but and you know something, in that clip I quote a lot of people, and I'll tell you people, that, some of the things you read about some of these scholars, you think, I'll give you an example. There's a really famous Qari, right? Really famous Qari Sahib, right? He's one of the key transmitters, and he was a major grammarian as well, a rival of Sibawayh from the time of the Salaf, yeah? Now, his name is Kasai. Now, Kasai is one of the main transmitters as well of one of the qira'at of the Quran as well. Now, they would say about him that he was epic, he was a legend, he was like this, he was like this, and, the guy knew his grammar to the T, and he knew his recitation like clockwork, and he knew this, and it's epic. But then they would say, oh, except he would often, they write in Arabic, غَيْرَ أَنَّهُ كَانَ يُدِيمُ النَّبِيذ وَيَأْتِي الْغِلْمَانِ. That except that he would often be drinking that kind of like alcoholic drink, which he believed was halal, and he would often have kind of gay sex. You think, what? with his servants, it says with his male servants, Ya'til Ghilman. Now, you think, huh? I'm sorry, I missed a whole season. I feel like kind of like lost out here. Like, what the hell? We went from he's epic, he's a legend, his recitation's on point, he's this. Oh yeah, and he used to often drink nabidh and have kind of gay sex with his male slaves. And you think, huh? Like, wait a minute, where did season 4 and season 5 go? How did I end up there? Like, but I mean, so my point is, people need to seriously tone it down. I'm just quoting the scholars. Don't shoot me. Don't shoot the messenger. The hadith says the messengers are always safe. Okay? Ar-Rusul Amina. That when a messenger brings a message, no attack me, no attack. I messenger only, only. This one only. No, sir. Yeah. Right, so anyway. Right, so let's move on. Am I Pakhtun? Pashto hai, Sajid Hussain. Right, so what are the questions? Let's take some questions, people. And then what we'll do is then we've got that whole topic to discuss on marriages. But let's take some questions first. Mufti is from Mirpur. Apun to Mirpur se hai, Mirpur. I do love languages though. People, on that note, I wanted to share actually some experience. I've recently kind of upped my game with the languages I'm studying, and I've signed up for some formal classes. So I take classes through this website called Verbaling. It's actually very good, you know. I'm quite impressed with it. So that you just type in whatever language you're looking for, and you got tutors across the world and different rates that they're charging, and that's it, just booking your lesson. So I've got my Espanol going down, people, practicing with mi maestro, who is from Mexico, people, from Mexico. And I'm also practicing my Sanskrit. All right, people, Sanskrit. I'm intrigued. I actually love languages like that. And I think people, it's a shame that, I mean, with Sanskrit, I find it really intriguing. It's such a classic language, and one of the earliest of the Indo-European kind of branch. But yeah, anyway, I thought I'd share that with you guys. Right, so, all right. ¿Cómo estás? Muy bien, people. Muy bien, that's it. Going back to the roots. Oh yeah, I mean, I think all languages are our roots, people. Right? Learn them all. That's what I say. Whatever you can. But I think, you know, on that note, I want to say something else as well. That I was reading a study, and you guys have probably seen this. It was being shared by a lot of people. It was on Facebook and on many others. It was an actual article from certain media, certain newspaper outlets, about why that age seems to, time seems to pass much faster with age. So, and they were trying to explain why this may be so. So for example, let's say for a 20-year-old, 5 years or 10 years would seem like a long time. But let's say for a 50-year-old or a 40-year-old, that same time, like 2 years spent as a 20-year-old, will not feel like 2 years when you're at a later age. So they were trying to explain what could be the reason for this. That why does time seem to go much faster, become more processed more rapidly as you age? So one of the explanations was things like they were saying neural networks, like within your brain, that at a younger age your brain is still making those neural networks, and at a later age it's already made them. But I don't think the article actually did a good job, so I wanted to share that with you guys. That, you see, in psychology, I remember going over certain things like this before. There has been a lot of research on how memory works. Okay, now you have to understand that our memory is kind of designed to stick to kind of like poster for us key issues that are important. Now, it does log kind of everything, but what it does is whatever's repetitive and mundane, the memory kind of flushes it out. So if I asked you as an example, let's say you've been working or studying or whatever you do, you have a routine, and I ask you, well, you know, when you went to work this morning, describe your journey to work and what happened. You might be able to do that quite successfully because it's only this morning. Now, or when you were coming back from work or uni or whatever. Now, if I asked you, okay, last week, Wednesday, describe your journey coming back from work. Now, unless something significant happened last week, Wednesday, you will not be able to recall it. Because you'll just remember a generic kind of return home. You can't remember Wednesday specifically. Unless something out of the ordinary or something happened on that day. So long as nothing extraordinary happened, it will just be kind of squashed, and your memory will do that. Now the problem with this is, imagine so many years of your life you're just doing the mundane. Your memory will just literally squash so much of it. And that is your life that it is squashing. So whereas when you're younger, there's a lot more happening. There's like the mundane, things are not so mundane. They are, but there's a lot of different. So a 20-year-old would either be studying, there's uni life, maybe they're trying to get a job, maybe they're about to get into a relationship, maybe they want to buy their first home, maybe they want to there's a lot happening. Maybe they're traveling, maybe they, just had some emotional experience, some relationship experience. So there's a lot. They're meeting new people, they're learning new skills. Now, as you, later on in life, as you age with life, you stop doing those things. So things become mundane and your memory starts compressing them. So my advice to a lot of people out there is seriously that make sure you continue to set yourself multiple goals. If they don't need to be massive, they can be, but you achieve them. But you continue to do things with your life that are different, that are kind of like flavoring, if you like, that this is why I was saying, if you want to learn languages, you're learning this language, you're learning that, maybe you're traveling, maybe you're making new friends, but you're doing things continuously that are new in your life. So it really enriches and it adds so much more quality to your life. So inshallah, I thought I'd share that, people. Ray, shukran, barakallahu feek, for the kind words there. Right, so what else is going on, people? What else? Shall we take some questions from people that posted? And then we'll go to the part on marrying. Right, so what's going on? What's going on, people? Right, so let's see the questions that are bothering the good folk of Facebook. Allah. Hez Jamrock always has some interesting, weirdly interesting questions. Muslim man is watching. when you look out the curtains, Muslim man is watching. Oh, thank God he's Muslim. I mean, the thought of him being uncircumcised would be really disturbing. I'm sorry, bad humor. Right. I'm just saying what the group's thinking. Right, so oh my God, so many questions by Hez Jamrock. Let's take some and then we'll move it along through different people. According to Quran, we can marry only those people of the book who are monotheists. Muhammad Naeem Khan. Well, Muhammad, I'm going to get to that in a while. So, espérame. Right, so what's the best way to deal with kafir? What's the best way to deal with kafir? Right, so who want proof about God or Quran? The only thing I was thinking is we have scientific and historical proof, that too before science existed, and God has to exist because he is the ever-living. If something created the universe, then what created that? God isn't created, or he wouldn't be God. God is the Hayy al-Qayyum. This guy really seems sure about himself, doesn't he? Why do I feel like he's trying to convince himself first and then tell me? This is the I would like a more detailed response from Mufti's perspective. Right, well, look, I would say just don't worry about trying to prove things. You see, when we say, can we prove that God exists? We can't prove God exists, but we feel it. To me, as an individual, to me, I've said this before on so many occasions, that look, the world just trying to make meaning of things, the ability to try to make meaning of something, to me, cannot be meaningless. That's to me. Now, one could argue that I may be wrong, but to me, it doesn't make any sense that this is just nothing, that this equates to nothing, that there is something greater than me that has created us all, set us all in motion, right? So, but it's coming back to the proving. You can't prove either ways. You can't prove that there is no God, and you can't prove that there is a God. But, I mean, you can present some rational explanations, but it's not the same as, it depends, unless that's what you mean by proof, then that's fine, you know. But it's not real, like, concrete proof, because then it wouldn't be faith. Yeah, okay. Zaid is asking, Salam, wassalam, can a non-Muslim marry a Muslim and then later embrace Islam? Is the marriage valid? Right, but I'm actually going to be covering this shortly anyway, so that's all good. Right, what else, people? What else? Why has Allah withheld the meaning of some verses of the Quran from the Ummah, like the huruf al-muqatta'at? Right, okay, so the huruf al-muqatta'a are things like alif lam mim, alif lam ra, these letters that come at the beginning of certain surahs. Nobody truly knows what they mean. They're just there. Why has Allah done that? I mean, it'd be so dumb for me to give you the answer, because it would mean that, like, why has Allah withheld this, but I happen to know it? Even the angels would be like, huh? What the hell? They'd be like, well, isn't that withheld? Isn't the whole purpose of it being withheld that he wouldn't know it? So if I just told you the answer, that would just mess up the whole game. But I think that these things were there in essence. Partially, obviously, it went with the whole, the way the sequencing of the letters and everything. But I also feel it's to kind of enshroud some mystery, and to let you know that you will never truly comprehend everything. It's a lesson, isn't it? That's what I think. I mean, I don't know. It'd be odd if I did know and nobody else knew. That would just be really weird. Right, so you said shaitan at best is simply insinuations and thoughts. How then do you interpret the verse وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ أَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. Allah. Right, okay, that's an interesting one, you know. What do I think of the story of Adam, of the bowing of the angels to Adam? You see, I feel that when it comes to, right, okay, the story of Adam alayhi salam, there's many parts of his story, okay, of Adam. For example, him being, you know, Allah saying, oh, we're going to have this type of human that's going to be different and this and this. I think that's all real, and that was all literal, that he was unique in the sense he was, that he had this unique cognitive capacity, as Allah mentions, and then obviously his offspring and so on. I feel personally that was a real understanding, but I feel that there's certain things certain stories in the Quran, some, especially to do with Adam, some aspects are kind of layered with, they have realism to them, but they're layered with symbolism as well. So some are symbolic as well. They're kind of like an allegory for life and things like this. So when it came to the angels were told to bow down to Adam, and they did, except Iblis, that part, is that literal? Was that like Adam was stood there and then all the angels came and they bowed down to him? Is this what we think happened? You see, because if you think of it like, remember I have a segment, a clip on how to view stories within the Quran. That you have this zoom in and zoom out effect. If you want to take it just as a story, it's fine. But if you want to take it as literal, then you zoom in, you find, does it still stand? Is there consistency? So when you take it in, you zoom in, you see that, wait a minute, there's a lot of problems here. So for example, Adam alayhi salam, the question of, okay, so where are these angels bowing to him? Is it on earth? Is it in the heavens? Wasn't his heaven in earth anyway? So the angels came to earth. All the angels, this is all the angels that were, they all came around him. They were instructed, what you know, when Allah said, Usjudu li Adam, what was this command? Was it a tashri'i or takwini? So tashri'i means, was it legislative? So Allah was giving an instruction, a commandment that is like, God is asking you, would you like to obey me? Like it's a tashri', it's like a sharia, it's a commandment. If that be the case, but then angels are ghair mukallaf, they don't have tashri'. And if it was takwini, God was commanding as an imperative, as in he was setting it into motion. Like Allah says, be, and it is like this. Or he says to the, to the heavens above, let there be rain, and there was rain, and things like this. Now, if you mean in that sense, then that they were just being programmed, then how does Iblis disobey? Because if it's takwini, then he's unable to disobey. And if it's tashri'i, then the angels don't really have a sharia, and they don't have any taklif, and they don't have, and where was this taking place, and where was, so what you find that there's a lot of inconsistencies. So in my understanding, that there's certain parts of Adam's story that are just mentioned as symbolism, and some parts that were real. Now, so it's a bit like, imagine I was to speak to you about somebody that you knew. Like, or let's say I was to speak about somebody who's like a hero, I don't know, of the recent past. And I was to say that, like imagine he was an ancestor of yours, a great-grandfather or somebody, and I was recalling an event that one day, he got in trouble, let's say with the system, the authorities, and they tried to put him into trouble or something, but he got away with it. As it not got away with it, but they failed in their plot. Now, I might say, and on that day, the forces of evil were hell-bent on doing him over. But good overpowered evil in the end. Now, I might say that, the forces of evil or the forces of good, but really I was just talking about, let's say I was speaking about an ancestor of yours, and I'm just giving an example of some kind of incident that he's going through. So language like this is used at times. Now, I feel that the angel thing and about Iblis disobeying, this thing was more symbolic about forces. That Adam was told, that God had is telling Adam that there are many forces of good that are subdued, that have succumbed, and they are subordinate to man. But yet there will be some forces of harm that will work against him, that refuse to subordinate. that refuse to succumb to man. And I think this was just a kind of a story, a symbolic story, an allegory that described that best. That humans will always have a struggle in life. That although they will kind of overcome, there will be many good things in their favor, but there will always be some things opposing them. That's what I think that particular part of the story represented. And you find people like scholars like Maulana Abdul Karim al-Athari in his tafsir Urwatul Wuthqa also kind of goes this way, describing this event to do with the forces, the quwwah of khair and the quwwah of shar and stuff like this. And so that's how I see that part of the story. Now, I'm not saying the whole story of Adam is an allegory. Some scholars have felt the whole of Adam is an allegory. Some have felt that everything is literal. I kind of, myself, am in the middle. So I feel that there was this, that there was reality to several aspects of it, and some aspects were allegorical. That's my understanding. Allahu A'lam. Right, so Waqar Ali said, is this a confident plug? Confidently done. No. Do you think Adam was 90 hands tall? Of course he wasn't. Adam alayhi salam would have been the same height as an average man. I mean, give or take, whatever that is. But he would have been exactly the same. And he would not have been the first he would have probably, in my understanding, been the father of the cognitive revolution amongst Homo sapiens. But he would not have been the first kind of bipedal human, so to speak. But he would have been, if we're considering Homo erectus and Homo, Neanderthals and Heidelbergensis, and we're considering all of these Homo habilis and all of these different hominins, he wasn't the first of the hominins, so to speak. And he wouldn't have been the first of the Homo sapiens either, in my understanding, but the first of the cognitive revolution. When Homo sapiens, their thinking suddenly changed about 70,000 years ago, approximately. And they just became something else. They became involved in art, in discovery, they just became a unique species all of a sudden. I think that at the head of that was Adam alayhi salam. And that's what the ability, when Allah said he taught him the constructs, that's what these things were, that he could construct his own knowledge and keep building. He could build knowledge independently. That's the unique thing. I've seen some people translate it as, and God taught Adam the nouns. That just sounds so silly. Sounds so ridiculous. And God taught Adam the nouns. That just sounds like so childish. Like, okay, today's nouns are a ball, a bat, a cat. Cat rhymes with bat. I'm sure my Zara, who's 4, is doing things like that. That's belittling Adam alayhi salam. Come on, for God's sake, if he's going to be the father of the cognitive revolution, he can't be like bat, cat, mat. And then somebody had translated, and God taught Adam, allama Adam al-asma, so he taught Adam the nouns. And you're thinking, well, what about verbs? What about prepositions? He's like, I, going. If you want to take that as a noun, that's not even a noun really. Active participle. But, so that's what it didn't mean. Look, you have to remember, people, even other hominins most likely may have had and would have probably had language, but to a lower level than us. So it's very likely that Neanderthals had language. But maybe just not on our level, that's all. The difference is that we can construct in-depth abstract knowledge. Like we can construct knowledge from knowledge. Like you take things like building blocks, you put them together, you construct new knowledge. We have induction, deduction, things like this. These things are very, very human, I think. As in very Homo sapien. Because if you think about it, look at a monkey today, like a chimpanzee. And even some, you get things like bonobos and other monkeys. They teach them certain basic kind of language skills through computers today. Basic skills. And they teach them, where they can identify letters of the alphabet. And they can point to the right letters, and they can do stuff like this. And arguably some gorillas or something have even tried to spell out certain things at some time. There's been research on this. But so if that's, the ape family, like from monkeys and things like this, and bonobos, and then what do you think of hominins that looked very much like us? Like Neanderthals. They would have had a higher level than the monkeys, definitely. So if they say today a monkey possesses the kind of, I don't know, like the brain of, like equivalent, I'm just saying in intelligence, probably like a 2-year-old child. So you can imagine that Neanderthals would have at least, been like 6-7-year-olds, at least, like that kind of capacity they would have had. So, yeah. Allah created languages at the time of Nimrud. That's funny. Allah created languages at the time of Nimrud. Nimrod. And before him, what were they doing? Ouch. And they're like, oh, you can speak. He's like, duh. What do you think? Oh. Right, so of course Allah didn't create languages like that. Human beings have been creating languages, but I feel that language is hardwired into us. And I do feel that language has been there before. It's been with, like I said, I feel that Neanderthals must have had language, but to a low level. And we Homo sapiens must have had language, but with the cognitive revolution, we took it to another level. That's what I think. But Allah didn't kind of like teach languages like that, like in that sense. I know, in the books of, you have this debate, Arabic was the first language, and no, it wasn't. Arabic was the first language. How on earth was Arabic the first language? Arabic belongs to the Semitic language group. Okay, so that means it's kind of broken off from the Semitic group, from which came things like Arabic, Aramaic, Hebrew, Syriac, things like this came from there. Just as Indo-European languages, whether it's Urdu, Hindi, French, German, English, Persian, they all belong to the Indo-European. So they came from something called Proto-Indo-European, and maybe they came from others before that. So you would have had, like, let's say Proto-Indo-European. From that would have come things like you would have had Latin, breaking away from that. From Latin, Vulgar Latin broke away from that. From that, the kind of Romance languages, Spanish and Portuguese and Italian. You would have had Germanic breaking away, and then from Germanic, English, and things like this, basically. But there is a real good book I'm going through currently called The Wheel, the Horse. I've forgotten the full title. I'm going through it on Audible. It's called The Wheel, the Horse. But it speaks about the Proto-Indo-European and how the language is diversified. Right, so cool, people. Right, let's take a look at this. Somebody said about linguistics. Right, it is actually, it's quite so Sajid saying check out about Nimrud and languages. Yeah, I think you're referring to the Tower of Babel story, but Yeah, so linguistics is something I have a passion about. Language, especially. Language. I mean, linguistics, yeah, I suppose so. Right, people, let's take a look at this question. Can Muslims and non-Muslims intermarry? Intermarry, the marriage. So let's take a look at... So where does this question emerge from? This question emerges because in our day and age, we've got... Right, we've got somebody said it takes two for a language to be... Radar Khan, you're absolutely correct. Language is a social phenomenon. It cannot exist individually. Therefore, and people like Wittgenstein had clearly argued that almost 100 years ago, that language cannot be a private phenomenon. It must be a public kind of phenomenon. So there's no such thing as a private language. That's absolutely true. And the Tower of Babel is not Islamic. No, that's not Islamic at all. Right, so the Tower of Babel is that God said, let's go down, that, that man, that humanity is kind of getting too smart. And they're building this tower to rise up to the heavens and reach God. So God said to the angels, let's go down and confuse them. And... let's split their languages so they can't communicate with each other. Therefore, they can't plot together and reach us. Oh God. What a plan. God says, oh no, they're going to come and catch up with us. So this is my great plan. I'm going to go there and change their language settings. I'm going to go... So the guy's going... So one guy's going... He's saying to the other one... He's supposed to say something. He says... And all of a sudden he's speaking another language. He says... وَمَاذَا سَنَفْعَلَ الْآن? And the other's like... إيه كمان يا? And somebody else is... No lo sé, no lo sé, no lo sé. Right, so this, oh my God. And one guy sitting at the back goes, oh my God. This one good. Right, so right, anyway, guys, we got to focus on this topic. People's marriages are at stake, for God's sake. Right, so the question is, when some people converted to Islam, right, I'm gonna get distracted. I gotta stop reading the comments. Right, so some people convert to Islam and their spouse, their husband or wife, hasn't converted. So there's one big problem, So on one way there's the deen, on the other way there's the... It's like, oh. Right, so this becomes a struggle for people. So they've asked questions that, look, if, especially coming from women, that, right, especially coming from women, that when they've converted and their husband doesn't convert to Islam, must they leave their husband? Now, some people have given them the advice that, Naam, ya ukhti, you must leave your husband. He's haram. He's a kafir, filthy kafir. Right, so you must leave your husband. And I think this kind of attitude is so, apart from it being home-wrecking, it is disastrous. It's absolutely disastrous, okay? Now, this is where this issue emerges and it caught light, okay? So, since then, several people have spoken on the topic. They've issued rulings. Sheikh Abdullah Al-Juday, who currently resides in the UK, I believe. Now, he's also authored a book on it, right, including several other scholars who have said it's permissible. Namely, some of these scholars have said that this woman can stay with that husband, even though he's a non-Muslim, and they can remain married. So I'll give this fatwa first, then I'll go through the discussion. Okay, so just to explain what the ruling is first of all. Right, so the ruling, according to Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya, who's a great epic scholar of our age, Maliki in essence, people definitely know of him. He's the teacher of Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. Now, and I believe Sheikh Hamza Yusuf would be with him on this. Now, but Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya has clearly given the fatwa that the wife can stay with her husband. This was also the fatwa, as I mentioned, of Sheikh Abdullah al-Juday, of Sheikh Qardawi, Yusuf al-Qardawi. It is the fatwa of Sheikh Ahmed Umar Hashim, who's the Ra'is of Jamiat al-Azhar, who was, previously the head of Jamiat al-Azhar. Ra'is of Jamiat al-Azhar is the fatwa of Dr. Muhammad al-Barri, who is the Ra'is, the kind of chair of Jama'iyat Ulama al-Azhar, who is the chair of the council of scholars of al-Azhar. It's his fatwa as well. And also with them, Banda Nachiz, standing in the queue with them, weirdly, is upon. Okay, so I too agree with these scholars that the woman does not need to leave her husband. Okay, she can stay with her husband, and vice versa. Okay, so the husband can stay as well with the wife. But I was just saying that commonly the issue seems to be appearing more so from women than it does from men. Now, what if they aren't married? Now, you see, that's a different interesting discussion, because I believe that, you see, when you say they aren't married, there's two things to that awab. One is that they're just like dating. So, okay, that's fine, you know, then they weren't really in a relationship anyway. The other is that they were in a relationship, but it wasn't like a civil marriage, but it was a relationship. Now, in my understanding, and I've got a segment on this, that if a person is in an exclusive relationship that is known to people as it is an exclusive relationship, then technically it seems to fulfill the conditions of an urfi nikah. Okay, because what is an urfi nikah? It is just exclusivity. That's all it is. Just qabiltu, that's it. You know, I accept, that's it. There's nothing more to it. Now, right, so that would count as in the relationship is there. Okay, so that relationship, she can remain in that relationship. If they weren't in a relationship to start off with, then okay, then it's her call anyway. She doesn't have to. I'm just saying that she could. Now, okay, so, right, now, let's start getting into the explanation of how do we arrive at this and what is going on. Well, first of all, we've got to understand that this issue in and of itself, right, so to understand it better, we've got to go to the roots. That what is a nikah? First of all, let's grasp that. So a nikah is a relationship that is kind of, you know, it's, I would say sacred. Yeah, in fact, let's say sacred. It's a kind of special or a sacred relationship that people have. Now, whatever that means to them, it can mean something different in a different context. But it's a kind of sacred relationship that people have. Usually of exclusivity, that's the kind of, or there's some exclusive rights to and for one another. Now, nikah lughatan just means sex. Okay, so linguistically, the term nikah just means sex. That's all it means. Istilahan, as terminology, it's referring to the kind of contract that a couple have. That's its technical usage. Its linguistic usage is just having sex, and hence you gotta you know what, I read, this is why you gotta be wary of Google Translate, because I read this today. Somebody actually shared a picture of a sheikh who was reading a nikah, right? So he's an Arabic-speaking sheikh, and he posted in Arabic, but the Google Translate or on Facebook had the translation up there. So he had posted in Arabic that he was with he said Ma'a akhi Mikael Mala, so Michael Mala, right, who's, by the way, it's not his wedding, it's not his nikah, but he was just there. Maybe he was reciting or something. He says في عقد النكاح لشخص آخر ليس ميكائيل. That's what he kind of wrote on his oh sorry, it's an Instagram post. So he wrote that it's not Mikael's nikah, but we're just there. I was there at this contract of nikah. But Google translated it, or sorry, the automatic translation at the bottom said, with my brother Michael Mala. Right, okay, no, this got corrected. Right, so, okay, so later on I think it corrected it. But it said on there, on one of the things that, I can't believe, I don't know if this was somebody was messing around, but it actually said it as with, in the contract of shagging for the contract of shagging. That's what it actually said. Right, so don't be surprised that Google Translate and these things, if they translate nikah as just sex, because linguistically that's what nikah means. It just means that, okay? So I thought I'd just quote that because I just saw it today. Right, but linguistically it means this contract. Now, all Muslims are in agreement that nikah for Muslims has certain conditions. Okay, that you must accept, that, you know, you must offer, they must accept, there must be some witnesses or an announcement or something like this. That's for Muslims. What about non-Muslim nikah? So, majority of all Muslims accept that non-Muslim nikah in their own way are valid for us. Okay, even though they are not Muslim, but if they're valid for them, then they are valid for us for them. So for example, if a couple came and they said we are a couple, so let's say a Hindu couple came, or just a regular couple, an atheist couple, or anybody came and they said we're husband and wife, or we're a couple, we have to honor that they are a couple. We can't say, oh, well, you know, according to the conditions of nikah, there must be a mahar, and there must have been 2 witnesses or announcement, and did you do this or did you do that? No, none. Even if they did a secret marriage, nobody knew anything. But if it was okay according to them, then Islam has to honor them according to their way of life. That's all. So you get scholars like Imam Sarakhsi clearly writes about that even according to Imam Abu Hanifa, he says, so even if non-Muslims had got married without witnesses, without guardian, without mahar, without everything, but they got married, and according to them it was fine, ala dinihim, if they both became Muslim, they are not asked to repeat their nikah. Right, so the point here, why did Muslim scholars discuss this point? The point was that if people embraced Islam as a couple or as a family, do we as Muslims ask them to repeat their nikah? And the answer is no, we don't. So in the time of the Prophet, many people embraced Islam. They were never asked to repeat their nikah. The Prophet never said, oh, you need to repeat a nikah. He never said that, ever. And in fact, people in tribes embraced Islam. They were never asked that you need to repeat your nikah. So this is, so just to be very clear on that, okay? Now, what does that mean? What can we deduce from there? Well, we can deduce from there that the nikah of the non-Muslims is valid. So if it's according to them, their rules, whatever their rules are, but according to them it's valid. So just like in today, so let's say in contemporary law, so let's say you get married in Pakistan, Now, you're married in Pakistan. Now, years later, in the UK, you decide to have a divorce. Now, by the way, many people don't know this. I'll just answer this. That if you get married in a country abroad and you come over here with your spouse, you're not automatically registered, by the way. Many people assume they are. They're not. Right? But, so according to the kind of registrar office, you won't be recognized as married. However, you can still apply for a divorce in this country. Now, if you applied for a divorce, you would have to provide a certificate of marriage, which technically wouldn't work in this country because the rules and regulations would be different to when you conducted your marriage, let's say in Pakistan. They could have been different, like let's say there was an age difference, or let's say this was your second wife in Pakistan, whereas in the UK you couldn't have a second wife. Or let's say this was, what I'm trying to say is, let's say it violated a condition that would have applied here. But if you wanted to conduct a divorce and you provided that certificate, then the English courts, under international treaties, on recognizing that, let's say, Pakistan is a sovereign state, would honor that certificate of marriage and say, well, okay, according to that sovereign state, therefore you can apply for divorce here. So it works in a similar way in contemporary law. Now, in Islamic law, it worked in a similar way, and works in a similar way, that Khadim Rizvi just wrote backup wife. like when the hard drive breaks down, you got a backup. Right? So my point is, when people embrace Islam, they're not being asked to repeat their nikah. That is majority, outright overwhelming majority of ulama of Islam have been on that understanding. The Maliki madhab, the Hanafi madhab, most of these madhabs all recognize that, look, if they were Muslim, they are not asked to repeat their Islam. So the Prophet's daughter Zainab, when she had married Abu al-As, and he was a mushrik in Mecca, when she came with the Prophet to Medina, years later, he came to Medina, and they got back together. They never repeated a nikah, and she actually offered him protection, and he came to see her, and remember, and then he embraced Islam. He hadn't embraced Islam. So, and she's the one that actually said, you know, that he has kind of like, they had a system that somebody could offer protection. And she said, well, he has my protection. Nobody should harm him. And he wasn't harmed. So and there's a lot of different rulings people extract from that. But the point is that their nikah was still valid. And that's important to understand why. That shows that even though they weren't Muslim, even though their conditions weren't being met, but their nikah was still a valid nikah. How else do we know that this is valid? You see, there's a hadith in Bukhari, people, that it's in Kitabun Nikah, and it's from Aisha radiallahu anha, who says that أن النكاح في الجاهلية كان على أربعة أنحاء. That it's hadith number 5127 in Kitabun Nikah, that she says that nikah in Jahiliyyah times was of 4 categories. And then she begins by saying, فَنِكَاحٌ مِنْهَا, and one of the nikahs from amongst those 4 was نِكَاحُ النَّاسِ الْيَوْمِ, is the nikah that people today are still upon. So this hadith is really interesting. Why? Because it shows us that Islam never introduced nikah. It never introduced these things. These were practices from Jahiliyyah, from pre-Islam. The practices were already there. So she says one of the 4 nikahs of Jahiliyyah is that which people are still upon today. Meaning that you go and you propose and the other person accepts and so on. And that was one of the nikah. The other type seemed to be really interesting. One was that nikahun akhar yajtami'u raht, that a group of people, a gang of guys, less than 10, would get together and they'd all they'll all enter upon a woman. This is what it says in, I'm not making this up. This was one of the Jahiliyyah type of, and if she got pregnant and gave birth, ومر ليال بعد أن تضع حملها أرسلت إليهم فلم يستطع رجل منهم أن يمتنع. And if she gave birth, she would then summon them, and they had to all attend. It's like the usual suspects, they're all back now. It's like, I mean, the first time they're there, they're all like, "Hoo!" And now that there's a child involved, they're like, it's the same crew. They're all sober this time, right? So, and then she says, قَدْ عَرَفْتُمُ الَّذِي كَانَ مِنْ أَمْرِكُمْ. She says that, and the woman would say that, you know what's happened, what you guys have done, and now that I've given birth, and then she would just say to any one of them, he's your son, and that's it. And the guy had no choice. If he was from that gang, so this was the kind of, the kind of gangbang version of, but that's what it says. It says that in there, right? I'm not making that up. Look, it says that in there, right? So that's one type of jahiliyyah. Another type was يجتمع الناس الكثير. But this, she says, but that was actually the decent women. They weren't like kind of prostitutes or anything. She says the fourth category was one of women that were prostitutes, and they used to have these flags hanging outside their doors, right? So whoever, that was the clear symbol that that it's all game, it's hunting season, right? So whoever wanted could just go, and if she got pregnant, she would just get them together. Then she would call a kind of specialist that would try to figure out through who kind of resembles. So they used to call them the qafa, these kind of people that would they were really good at seeing things like if the fingers or the feet or maybe the eyes, they resemble a certain person. That would be an expert. He would be like the forensic. He'd like come in like, well, there's been quite a scene here. That's the kind of job you want as a career, that you that you're being called in. That, or you're just busy as with the earlier crew. You're just part of the Royal Rumble. I'm going to work today, and you put on your gown. I'm just walking through the streets. This is like, it's a difficult life. This is a difficult job, but somebody's got to do it. With a cigar in your mouth. Anyway, people, so these were the different kinds of nikah that existed in Jahiliyyah. But the one that carried on was the normal one, that where you go and propose and the other person accepts and so on. So this, you can see, was not something that Islam introduced. It was already there, but Islam kind of allowed, said there was nothing wrong with it. So that's fine. Now, then you have the issue, okay, what about marrying? So if their nikahs of the non-Muslims are okay and the nikah of the Muslims are okay, what about if they intermarried? Do we have any precedents, first of all? Well, one point we have straight away, what do we have any objections? Because if their nikah is valid and our nikah is valid, so what if they inter nikah? You know, the inter, hello. They did the inter nikah. Then the question is, well, some people would say, no, that's not okay, because there's a verse of the Quran, is it Surah Al-Mumtahina, that where Allah mentions that لا هن حل لهم ولا هم يحلون لهن, that those women are not halal for them. And he's speaking about those women who did hijrah, the Muslim women that came to Medina. They're not halal for their husbands back in Mecca, and they're not halal for them. So somebody could object with that verse. They could equally object with the verse that وَلَا تَنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكَاتِ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنَّ, that do not, in Surah Al-Baqarah, that do not marry the mushrikat women until they believe. And then Allah further states, وَلَا تُنْكِحُوا, and do not marry off al-mushrikeen, to the mushrikeen, as in your women folk, do not marry them off to them, حَتَّى يُؤْمِنُوا, until they believe. And that's in Surah Baqarah, verse 221. Now, so the question is that, well, with these verses, that could be an objection. That, okay, that they can't intermarry. Well, okay, well, we've got that objection. Now, what do we have in contrast to that? What we have in contrast is Allah mentions in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 4, Allah says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا أُحِلَّ لَهُم. They are asking you what has been made halal for them. قُلْ أُحِلَّ لَكُمُ الطَّيِّبَاتِ, that good things have been made halal for you. وَمَا عَلَّمْتُم مِّنَ الْجَوَارِحِ مُكَلِّبِينَ تُعَلِّمُونَهُنَّ مِمَّا عَلَّمَكُمُ اللَّهُ, and the animals you use for hunting from what you teach them, from what Allah has taught you. فَكُلُوا مِمَّا أَمْسَكْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ, and then what they hunt for you, you can eat from it, it is halal. وَاذْكُرُوا اسْمَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ, and mention the name of Allah. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَرِيعُ الْحِسَابِ. Then verse 5, اليوم أحل لكم الطيبات وطعام الذين أوتوا الكتاب حل لكم وطعامكم حل لهم. That today these good things have been made halal for you. The food of those who have been given the book is halal for you, and your food is halal for them. وَالْمُحْسَنَاتُ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ, and women, that chaste women of believers. وَالْمُحْسَنَاتُ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, and the women of those who were given the book before you. Now that is really interesting because, well, wait a minute. Here you are marrying a Jewish woman or a Jewish man. Sorry, a Jewish... sorry, Freudian slip there. Or a Christian woman, right? So the question is, well, their rules are completely different. According to the Jewish teachings, the child, so long as the mother is Jewish, is always Jewish. Then you have a tradition from Ibn Umar radiallahu anh saying that the Christians are mushrikeen. That they are he says, I don't know a mushrik greater than one who says, Jesus is my God, is my Lord. So if this has been made halal for them, so why not for regular non-Muslims? Here is the question, why not? Now, one may say, well, you know, these people still believe in one God. Okay. But the question is, well, Christians can believe quite differently, if you think about it. Christians do, you know what, Jesus, oh, sweet Jesus, you know, these kind of things like Jesus being Lord is such a primary focus of Christians. Yet it's permissible. Some people have said, oh, the reason these people were okay because their food was kind of halal. And you think, well, really? Because Imam Malik answers that he says, and this was Imam Ahmad as well, that the reason he didn't like Muslims marrying Christian women because it is not permissible for a Muslim man to prevent his Christian wife from bringing alcohol or pork into his home. It's not permissible. Imam Malik says, لَيْسَ لَهُ يَمْنَعْ, he cannot stop her Islamically, even though it's his house. Now think about it. You would think back then in a patriarchal society they would have stamped down. Yet Imam Malik clearly and Imam Ahmad said it is not halal for the husband to prevent his wife because it's halal for them to drink alcohol, to eat pork. And Imam Malik said, and it is inevitable, she will definitely give her children pork. Because think about it, the man is hardly at home, he's probably working, he's doing this, and it's halal for her to eat. If she's going to cook pork, well, you think she's not going to feed it to her own kids? So, and it was so easy for Imam Malik or those people to say, it's the man's house, he should say, well, this is my roof, my rules, you take the pork out, throw it out, you're not allowed to bring it. But no, He said, لَيْسَ لَهُ أَنْ يَمْنَعَهَا. He cannot prevent her from, eating لحم الخنزير or al-khamr. So, okay, so it's not the food, it's not the influence of impurity and stuff like this. Okay, what about another spanner in the works? What about the Majus, the Zoroastrians? Now here it gets a little interesting, because Imam Malik transmits in his Muwatta, people. This is the book of Imam Malik on Hadith. Now, he transmits about the jizya of Ahl in Hadith number, in this edition, right, 631, Hadith 631, from Malik, and this is really interesting. Imam Malik sometimes, he doesn't normally transmit from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. Not for, we don't know the reason, but he doesn't generally have transmissions much from him, although Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq was his teacher. But yet here, Imam Malik is transmitting from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, from his father Muhammad al-Baqir, from his father Ali Zain al-Abidin, but then he says from Umar ibn al-Khattab. It's really interesting that Imam Malik brings a chain going from the kind of Shia Imams and then linking it through to Umar as well. Through him, demonstrating that maybe, things have just become unnecessarily so politicized. That, that they did have this kind of respect for each other and love and admiration. So he transmits from Umar that he mentioned the Majus, the Zoroastrians, and he said, what do I do about them? I don't know. So Abdul Rahman ibn Auf said, I heard the Messenger of Allah say, Sunnu bihim sunnata ahlil kitab. Sunnu bihim sunnata ahlil kitab. That you treat them the way you treat the people of the book. That go, not just sunnu, like take the same sunnah, the same road for them that you take for. So based on this, when it came to having, could you have intimate relationships with these people, you had certain scholars all of a sudden, certain companions like Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman radiallahu anh said you could with the Majus. You had people like Amr ibn Dinar from Mecca who said you could. You had Ata ibn Abi Rabah who said you could. Especially, and I know it's a whole different discussion, I've discussed it in the past as well, about things like servants and that they had in the past and slaves. Now, but expanding on that, and I've explained all of that in a separate segment, and you can watch it out on, you can check it out on YouTube about slavery, and I've explained how with trajectory hermeneutics that was to be made haram in time to come. But it's interesting how, especially in those aspects as well, that they said that the Zoroastrians were just like the people of the book. Now, Tawus, who's a student of Ibn Abbas, went one step further and said any idol worshipper too. He said, Wathaniyat, even women who worshipped idols. And he based this on the battle of the Prophet, which was known as Ghazwatul Awtas, that when they came back from there were several women that came back with them, that many of the companions had relationships with. And they said that, Tawus said that they weren't Muslim and they weren't Ahlul Kitab, they were Mushrikat. They were women that used to just worship idols. Now, based on this, people, when you see all of these kind of things, you understand that, well, okay, so why wasn't this commonly happening? And what you get is that, look, Islam in its early time was a make or break deal with the companions and with the early communities. And it was important that Muslims kind of set up families, set up a society for Islam to really flourish. That at that time it was going through an unstable and insecure phase. In time, like today, Islam, like let's say when we are 1.8 billion people on the earth, Islam is no longer insecure. with the the likes of me or you or whatever, we make no difference to Islam. If Islam is here to stay now, it's not the same as it was in the beginning, when Islam was simply a society. Now, at that time, if people started diluting and branching out, it could have caused problems. So this is why it strongly emphasized the bond between Muslims, between people of the same faith. So you could have that kind of a household. Even today, this is the ruling generally within Islam. I feel that it is still strongly encouraged that you share common faith, you share common goals, especially when it comes to family life. But the question is, if somebody did conduct a nikah with a non-Muslim, or somebody embraced Islam and the other partner was still non-Muslim, is that relationship still valid? Is it valid? I'm not saying is it a good thing or should you be doing it, but is it valid? And I believe it is valid, just as those other scholars I've quoted. And what's interesting as well is, and the dalil for it, under the verse of the Quran, وَلَا تُمْسِكُوا بِعِصَمِ الْكَوَافِرِ, that do not hold on to, like in a relationship, to the disbelieving women. This was a verse. Now, some people use this as an evidence. Well, if that were the case, my first point would be that the nikah ought to automatically have broken. Like, think about it. If this verse meant that a nikah doesn't happen between a Muslim and a non-Muslim, then that meant that all the companions who had non-Muslim wives at the time of Hijrah, right, so it would have just broken automatically. If that was the case, then why is it when this verse was revealed, وَلَا تُمْسِكُوا بِعِصَمِ الْكَوَافِرِ, right, after the women had done Hijrah, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh had two wives who were still not in Medina. They were mushrikat, they weren't Muslim. One was called Qurayba bint Abi Umayyah, and the other was called Kulthum bint Amr al-Khuza'iyah. So Qurayba and Kulthum, Umar ibn al-Khattab divorced them. He said, طَلَّقَهُمَا. He gave them talaq. Now the question is, why would you be giving talaq unless the nikah was actually valid? You'd only give talaq if it was actually valid to begin with. If it wasn't even valid, then why are you giving talaq? So that's a further evidence really. And this verse, وَلَا تُمْسِكُوا بِعِصَمِ الْكَوَافِرِ, and this, what I quoted earlier, لَا هُنَّ حِلٌّ لَهُمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحِلُّونَ لَهُنْ, that they are not halal for them, for those men, and those men are not halal for them. Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya mentions that this verse was speaking about the muhajirat, about those women who did hijrah and came to Medina. It was not speaking about people in general, because it begins by saying that when the muhajirat women come to you and so on. Now, so that's what it was in context, and it was to do with the context of just following the Sulh of Hudaybiyah, and when the Muhajirat women came, and the Prophet didn't return them because some of the mushrikeen men in Mecca asked for those women to be sent back, and they would have been tortured as well, and the Prophet refused to do it. Now, so in this verse, that لا هن حل لهم ولا ترجعوهن, do not send them back to the kuffar, they are not halal for them, they are not halal for them. This was a ruling of saying that was specific to the, muhajirat. Okay, this is what Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya writes. And how do we know that they are not halal for them and they are not halal for them? Because other marriages were allowed to mushrikat, like Christians. Christians are also mushrikeen from one aspect. They do believe in Jesus to be God, yet the nikah is perfectly valid, right? And relationships with wathaniyat, idol worshippers, according to Tawus, and was permitted, and with Zoroastrians, according to Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman radiallahu an, and Amr ibn al-Dinar, and according to Ata ibn Abi Rabah, and so all of these. So this was the kind of summary to show that it wasn't actually as straightforward. This issue that if a woman embraced Islam and her husband was a non-Muslim, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah brings 9 different opinions, right, representing what to do in that, or what the scholars have said in that scenario. So to sum it up, people, once again, that in that situation, a woman can stay, if she converted to Islam, her husband didn't, she can stay within that relationship with her non-Muslim husband if she wants to. And what's interesting here, side note, does she have to convert him or try to convert him? And you know, in a previous show, some people, I mentioned that some people were they were making these clips about me from a prior Q&A where I was asked that, you know, what's the best thing for converts to do? And I said, don't try to convert your family. And people were saying, oh my God, agent of the Yahud, agent of Israel. You know, these kind of, right? Well, I want to quote to you, this is Mudawwana of Imam Malik, transmitted by a student, Ibn Qasim. Right, now he says, now check this out, this is Imam Malik, people, Imam Malik. قلت أرأيت إن أسلمت المرأة وزوجها كافر. He says, what do you say about this? If a woman became Muslim and her husband is a kafir, he says, أيعرض على زوجها الإسلام في قول مالك أم لا? Should they present Islam, offer Islam to her husband? Should it be offered, like through her? Should she offer it? Or maybe people around, should they present it to him? قال لا يعرض عليه الإسلام في رأيي. لا يعرض عليه الإسلام. He said, لا يعرض. You do not offer or present Islam to him. That was Imam Malik. Right? Why? Because his point is, what for? That's not how it works. You know, he would know what Islam is. Because she's embraced Islam, you think he doesn't know what Islam is. If he accepts it, he accepts it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. You don't need to be presenting these kind of things to... Islam doesn't need to throw itself around. It's not that cheap. You know, you don't need to feel that, oh, everybody needs to embrace Islam. Islam has a value to it. If people want it, they can come and have it. If they don't want it, that's fine. There's no harm in speaking about Islam. That's all good. But my point was that there's no need for this obsession to try to convert people. There's no need for that. And that was Imam Malik. You know, people say agent, sell out. Would they say that about Imam Malik? The legend of Medina, the Don of Medina. That was from him. I was simply representing people, the school of Medina. That was Imam Malik's teachings. So my point, coming back to the topic, is that, look, a woman can choose to stay in that relationship if she wants to. Right, that's all so that's the fatwa. A summary of all of what's been expressed, the argument is that nikah was not a kind of relationship. Nikah means a relationship, a kind of ceremonious relationship, which carries different meanings in different cultures. For us in Islam, that there's rights. In most relationships, there's some kind of rights for and towards one another. Okay. Now, and some kind of exclusivity. Now, a nikah was not something Islam introduced, but Islam recognized. That's an important difference, that is. Point 2, nikah of any culture and community and any faith and no faith is equally recognized by Islam. So if that couple embraced Islam, or that family, they are not asked to repeat a nikah, regardless of them performing their nikah under any kind of conditions that we may not agree with. But so long as they agreed with it in their lifestyle, that we are a couple, then that's fine. Islam honors it. So if Islam honors nikahs of any lifestyle or whatever to be valid, then in essence they would be valid regardless of who was participating, if it was a Muslim and a non-Muslim. So even a nikah between a Muslim and a non-Muslim would be valid. The dalil for that is when the companions were discouraged from these kind of nikahs, people like Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh divorced his his mushrik, his kind of pagan, sounds funny to say pagan, but pagan kind of wives, Qurayba and Kulthum, who were mushrikat. He divorced them, right? So with these points, and you've got the fact that as a final point, you have that Islam does encourage strongly a family kind of setup and a family unit, and thereby does strongly recommend, not just strongly recommend, that the nikah is between Muslims if it is of a Muslim. So you marry a Muslim. That is Islam's primary focus. So you can have a safe or a kind of a zone, a harmonious zone in which you can raise children who would not be in conflict of faith between the parents and things like that. So with these things in mind, that's how it generally goes about, that Islam, that nikah was not something it introduced, that it just acknowledged. It also acknowledged that of the different faiths, that they were valid in their own right, and that based on that they should be valid between themselves as well. Okay, so if they did, so whether it's Muslim and whatever, faith or no faith. But that said, these things are not encouraged in Islam. Okay, they are kind of discouraged, and you are encouraged to marry within the faith. But these things would be valid if they happened. So I hope that kind of sums up a lot of I'm just trying to think if there were any so are the children irreligious? So what are the children? I suppose as you bring them up, they will be brought up. I mean, with the understanding that you bring them up. You mean if they are, let's say if one of the parents is Muslim, the other is non-Muslim, there may be a conflict. And this is why Islam encourages strongly that you marry within the faith. That said, the nikah would be valid. There's a difference in it being valid and it necessarily being the right thing or the best choice from a faith perspective. I'm not saying it's the best choice from a faith. It probably is maybe a disastrous choice from the faith perspective, but it would still be valid. Okay, so there's a difference between validity and between the quality of something. Okay, so I need you to understand that. So the whole point today was to simply emphasize that even if a Muslim married a Hindu, for example, that the nikah would still be valid, but it may not be a qualitative relationship, and it may be a disastrous one from a religious perspective, but it would still be valid, if that makes sense. Somebody said traditionally the child has the father's religion. Not necessarily. I mean, if the mother was Muslim, that's fine. She could, so long as she had her sway, she could bring the child up a Muslim. As you saw in the Jewish teachings, so long as the mother is Jewish, the child is Jewish, not by the father. And I think this is, you know, it's not necessarily the case that it's always with the father. How about nikah of Nuh and his wife and Pharaoh and wife? I'm not sure what the question is. How about the nikah? I've got no idea what that question is. Muslim marrying a Hindu, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. I'm not saying, by the way, I've stressed, I'm not saying these things are necessarily from a religious perspective good or that people should do them. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if they were done, is the nikah valid? That's the difference. And I feel it is valid. Mufti Sahib, is your spouse Muslim? Aren't we all Muslim in the sense that we all ultimately submit? How about the wedding night, he means. The wedding night, well, I'm sure who's thinking about worship on that night? Worshipping something else, more like. Right, people, let's wrap this up. Oh my God, is that the time? God damn, it's been awesome, people. Epic as always. Right, much love to all of you. Mwah, inshallah. Any questions, any issues, reach out to me. Facebook Messenger is usually better than the other Facebook messages, but they're all good. Take very good care of yourselves. Till next week, stay blessed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.